You feel productive every time you finish a crossword puzzle. Your brain has been working. The neurons have been firing. Surely you are keeping your mind sharp. But here is what many people miss. Completing a crossword may actually give you a false sense of cognitive security. The activity trains one narrow set of neural pathways, mostly vocabulary, pattern recognition, and sitting still. Meanwhile, other critical brain systems remain dormant. And that distinction matters enormously for whether your independence, memory, and mental clarity will actually be protected as you age. In this video, you will discover 5 activities that your brain genuinely needs, but that crossword puzzles do not provide. More importantly, you will understand why these activities matter, how they work inside your brain, and how to start implementing them immediately. Your brain is not a single machine. It is a vast network of connected systems. Some systems specialize in memory. Others control movement, balance, and coordination. Still others manage emotions, social connection, and the ability to learn completely new information. A crossword puzzle activates the language and logic sectors. But if the other sectors are left idle, your overall cognitive reserve begins to decline, even while your crossword times improve. This is why people sometimes report that they do puzzles every day but still feel confused about new information, or can finish a crossword but struggle to remember what I did yesterday. The puzzle is real. The protection is incomplete. The good news is that adding 5 specific activities can change this picture entirely. These are not exotic or expensive. They are backed by patterns seen repeatedly in cognitive neuroscience and longevity research. And they can be layered into your current life without requiring you to become an athlete or a student again. Let me walk you through each one, explaining the mechanism, showing you what it looks like in ordinary life, and giving you a practical starting point. Activity 1. Rhythmic physical movement. The first activity your brain genuinely needs is rhythmic physical movement. Not intense exercise necessarily, rhythmic movement. Picture this. You are walking at a steady pace. Your arm swings. Your breathing finds a rhythm. Your heartbeat increases in a predictable pattern. Inside your brain, something profound is happening at the same time. Blood flow to the prefrontal cortex, the area responsible for planning, decision-making, and emotional regulation, increases significantly. The hippocampus, which handles memory formation, becomes more active. Neurons begin releasing brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is essentially fertilizer for brain cells. Rhythmic movement is one of the most powerful cognitive stimulators available, and it works through an entirely different mechanism than a crossword puzzle. A crossword puzzle is stationary. Your body remains still while your mind works. Rhythmic movement does the opposite. Your body is active in a predictable pattern while your mind processes the rhythm, the balance, and the continuous feedback from your muscles. This activates cerebellar pathways, the ancient brain systems responsible for coordination and proprioception that cognitive puzzles never touch. Here is what this looks like for a real person. Maria is 72. She completes the New York Times crossword 4 times a week. She is genuinely good at it. She finishes in about 20 minutes. But 6 months ago, she noticed that she forgets conversations from the previous week. She has trouble planning her grocery trip. She feels mentally sluggish despite being mentally active. She started walking 3 times a week for 30 minutes each time, not power walking, just steady, rhythmic walking at a pace where she could still talk but not sing. Within 3 weeks, she noticed her morning mental fog lifting. Within 2 months, she remembered the plot of a television show she had watched. Her planning felt sharper. The crosswords remained the same, but her overall cognition improved. The mechanism is simple. Rhythmic movement increases heart rate, which pushes oxygenated blood to the brain. The repetitive pattern activates the cerebellum and basal ganglia, structures involved in procedural memory and coordination. The sustained effort stimulates the release of growth factors that literally strengthen connections between neurons. And the rhythmic nature of the activity, whether walking, swimming, dancing, or cycling, appears to synchronize different brain regions in ways that fragmented or stationary activities do not. The distinction that matters. Not all physical activity creates the same cognitive benefit. A single intense workout session produces cardiovascular benefit, But rhythmic movement sustained over 20 to 30 minutes produces the cognitive benefits you are seeking. The rhythm is the key. Your heart rate is elevated, but in a steady, predictable way. Your breathing is increased but sustainable. You are not stopping and starting. You are moving continuously in a repeating pattern. Here is what to do. Choose a rhythmic activity you can sustain for at least 20 to 30 minutes without stopping. Walking, swimming, cycling, dancing, rowing, or even steady-pace gardening works. The pace matters less than the consistency and rhythm. Aim for 3 times per week. The cognitive benefits typically appear within 2 to 4 weeks of regular practice. But Activity 2 operates through a completely different mechanism, and it may be even more important for maintaining independence. Activity 2. Learning something completely new. The second activity your brain needs is learning something genuinely new, not reviewing something you already know, but building a completely novel skill. Think about what happens when a crossword puzzle becomes easy. You start recognizing patterns. The difficulty plateaus. Your brain is now operating on autopilot in that domain. This is efficient, but efficiency is not what protects against cognitive decline. Cognitive reserve is built by forcing your brain into genuinely challenging, novel territory. When you learn something completely new, your brain's learning networks activate in a way that no familiar activity can replicate. The prefrontal cortex engages intensely. The anterior cingulate cortex, which handles error detection and conflict resolution, fires repeatedly because you are making mistakes. The dopamine system activates because there is something unpredictable happening. You do not yet know the pattern. And the connectivity between different brain regions increases because your brain must coordinate multiple systems to understand the new information. Here is the critical distinction. Learning a new crossword variant or a harder crossword is not the same as learning something new to your brain. Your brain already understands words, patterns, and spatial reasoning. A harder crossword activates the same systems more intensely, but it does not build new neural pathways. Learning to play an instrument, to speak a new language, to code, to sketch, or to understand a new subject like astronomy or history, activates fundamentally different networks because your brain must build new associations from the ground up. Picture James, who is 68. He is very sharp. He reads constantly. He does multiple puzzles every day. His vocabulary is excellent. But he had a small stroke at 65, and his neurologist recommended cognitive enrichment. His daughter suggested he learn to play the guitar, something he had always wanted to try but never done. For the first month, it was frustrating. His fingers did not cooperate. The finger fretboard coordination was difficult. He could not yet play a simple melody. But something unexpected happened. He started remembering things more clearly. After about 3 months of regular practice, his wife noticed that his overall sharpness seemed to return. His energy improved. When tested informally, his memory for new conversations and directions was sharper than before the stroke. The mechanism involves multiple brain systems simultaneously. The motor cortex activates to control the fingers. The auditory cortex activates to distinguish pitches and rhythms. The working memory systems activate to hold the note pattern. The language learning networks activate because reading music involves learning a new symbolic system. The reward centers activate when he plays a note correctly and hears the feedback. Simultaneously, his brain is making thousands of new connections because it is doing something it has never done before. This is what builds cognitive reserve, not doing the same mental activity more intensely, but recruiting entirely new brain networks through an activity that is novel. The distinction that matters. Easy learning feels good. Learning material that is moderately challenging produces cognitive benefit. Learning something genuinely new, where you make mistakes and gradually build competence, produces the strongest cognitive benefit. If you find yourself doing the activity without much difficulty after a few weeks, you may be ready to increase the challenge or consider a new skill. Here is what to do. Choose one skill that genuinely interests you, but that you have never learned before. It should be something that requires coordination, concentration, and repeated practice. Playing an instrument, a new language, visual art, dancing, or coding are all excellent choices. Plan for at least 3 to 4 months of practice to see the cognitive benefits. Start with 10 to 15 minutes of daily practice, then increase to 30 minutes. The early frustration is part of how your brain builds new pathways. Do not avoid the discomfort. Welcome it. That addresses motor learning. But the next activity engages a system that many older adults inadvertently neglect. Activity 3. Social cognitive engagement. The third activity your brain needs is genuine social cognitive engagement. Not passive social time, but active conversation with another person, where you are required to understand their thoughts, respond in real time, and navigate the complexity of human interaction. When you do a crossword puzzle, you are alone. Your brain is working, but it is working in a predictable, rule-based domain. Social interaction is the opposite. Another person's mind is unpredictable. You cannot memorize their thoughts. You must constantly read subtle cues, predict intentions, navigate disagreement, adjust your communication, and maintain emotional awareness. This forces your brain into a level of active engagement that puzzles never demand. The cognitive systems involved in social interaction are extensive. The theory of mind networks activate. These are the regions responsible for inferring what another person is thinking. The emotional processing networks activate. The verbal fluency networks activate. The listening and language comprehension networks activate. Your attention systems remain alert because the person may say something unexpected. Your memory systems engage because you remember details from your previous conversations. And here is something important. This is one of the strongest predictors of maintained cognitive function across the lifespan. Longitudinal studies consistently show that people with rich social engagement maintain better memory, processing speed, and reasoning over time than people who are similarly educated but more socially isolated, even if the isolated person does mental puzzles daily. Imagine Eleanor, who is 74. She lives alone since her husband died. She is intelligent and engaged. She does the crossword every morning. She reads. But she lives alone and does not go out much. Her daughter is concerned because Eleanor reports difficulty remembering conversations with her doctor and trouble with details when paying bills. Eleanor's daughter noticed that when they had longer phone conversations, Eleanor seemed sharper. So Eleanor joined a book club. She attends weekly. The book discussions are vigorous. People disagree about plot details. They make jokes. Eleanor must follow someone else's logic, remember what was said earlier in the discussion, and articulate her own thoughts. Within 3 months, her daughter noticed Eleanor was remembering medical details better. Eleanor was staying more current on what was happening in her family. Her overall mental agility seemed improved. The mechanism involves several brain systems firing together. Social conversation activates emotional recognition networks, language comprehension, working memory, theory of mind networks, and attention systems simultaneously. The unpredictability of genuine conversation, never knowing exactly what the other person will say, keeps your dopamine system engaged. This coordinated activation across multiple systems strengthens the connections between those systems, resulting in improved overall cognitive function. The distinction that matters. Passive social time, sitting in a room with others while watching television, provides emotional comfort but not cognitive engagement. Active conversation, where you must listen, understand, respond, and adapt, provides cognitive benefit. One-sided conversations where you listen but do not engage produce minimal benefit. Genuine back-and-forth dialogue, where you must track multiple threads of thought, is what builds cognitive reserve. Here is what to do. Commit to at least one regular social engagement where genuine conversation is the primary activity. A book club, a discussion group, a regular dinner with friends, a community class, or a volunteer position where you interact meaningfully with other people. Aim for at least 1 to 2 hours per week of active social dialogue, not passive attendance, but actual conversation. The cognitive benefits appear quickly, often within 2 to 3 weeks. But while you are engaging socially, your brain also needs something that many people inadvertently remove from their lives. Activity 4. Sleep and sleep consistency. The fourth activity your brain needs is not an activity at all, it is sleep. But more specifically, it is consistent sleep at the same time each night, in sufficient quantity and quality. Many people dismiss sleep as passive recovery time, but your brain during sleep is anything but passive. During sleep, particularly during deep sleep and REM sleep, your brain consolidates memories. It transfers information from short-term to long-term storage. It clears out metabolic waste products that accumulate during the day. It reorganizes information, making new associations. It strengthens connections between brain regions. It actually restores its own biochemical balance. A crossword puzzle requires you to be awake and alert. Sleep does not feel like you are doing anything cognitively valuable. But in fact, sleep is where the value from your other activities gets cemented into long-term memory, and where your brain's infrastructure gets restored. Here is what many people experience. They start a new mental activity or learn a new skill. They practice diligently. But if their sleep is fragmented or insufficient, the learning does not stick. They progress very slowly. But when they improve their sleep, the same amount of practice suddenly produces faster learning and better retention. The only variable that changed was sleep. The mechanism involves the hippocampus specifically. During wakefulness, you learn new information. Your hippocampus temporarily holds that information in working memory. But during sleep, particularly during slow-wave sleep and REM sleep, the hippocampus replays the information, essentially reactivating the patterns you learned. This replay causes lasting changes in the cortex, making the memory stable and long-lasting. Without adequate sleep, the replay does not happen fully, and the memory remains fragile or does not consolidate at all. Additionally, during sleep, your brain clears out amyloid beta and tau proteins that accumulate during waking hours. These proteins, at high levels, are associated with cognitive decline and are thought to contribute to neurodegenerative diseases. Your brain's glymphatic system, a cleaning system specific to the nervous system, becomes much more active during sleep, particularly during deep sleep. Think of it like your brain's overnight maintenance crew. Without sufficient sleep, the maintenance does not happen fully, and the clutter accumulates. The distinction that matters. It is not just about total hours. A person who sleeps 8 hours but at inconsistent times may not consolidate memory as effectively as someone who sleeps 7 hours consistently at the same time each night. The consistency allows your brain's circadian rhythms to synchronize your sleep architecture. The timing allows your brain to complete full cycles of deep sleep and REM sleep. Fragmented sleep, waking multiple times during the night, interrupts this process. Here is what to do. Aim for a consistent bedtime and wake time, even on weekends. This is more important than hitting an exact number of hours, though 7 to 9 hours is the general target for adults over 50. If you are waking frequently during the night, discuss this with your doctor. Sleep apnea, medication side effects, and other factors may be contributing. If you are taking sleep aids, understand that different types of sleep medication produce different effects on memory consolidation. Your doctor can help you determine what is most beneficial. Do not simply accept poor sleep as a consequence of aging. Sleep quality can be addressed, and addressing it has direct cognitive benefits. So far, you have rhythmic movement, novel learning, social engagement, and good sleep. But there is one more activity that pulls everything together. Activity 5. Integrated complexity. The fifth activity your brain needs is integrated complexity, an activity that demands multiple brain systems working together simultaneously in a way that requires attention and produces novelty. All the previous activities are valuable on their own, but your brain truly thrives when multiple demands are present at once. When you are learning something new while also moving rhythmically, while also engaging socially, while also managing attention, that is when your brain reaches the level of engagement that builds the most resilience. Dance is an example. You are learning something new. You are moving rhythmically. You are usually doing it with other people. You are managing balance and spatial coordination. You are monitoring your body's position in space. You are perhaps listening to music. You are perhaps interacting with a partner or a group. Your brain must coordinate motor systems, auditory systems, social systems, motor learning systems, attention systems, and visual systems all at once. Another example is group travel planning. You are learning something new about a place. You are researching, problem-solving, making decisions. You are doing this with other people, which requires conversation and negotiation. You might be mapping routes, which requires spatial reasoning. You are managing multiple pieces of information simultaneously. The cognitive systems activated by integrated complexity are qualitatively different from the systems activated by single-demand activities. Your working memory must hold multiple types of information simultaneously. Your attention systems must shift between different demands. Your emotional systems must regulate while you are concentrating. Your social systems must operate while you are focused on a task. This creates a much richer pattern of neural activation and a much stronger stimulus for building new connections. Think of it like the difference between a light drill versus a full orchestral rehearsal. A single musician practicing scales activates musical learning networks, but an orchestra playing a complex symphony activates every player's musical systems, listening systems, attention systems, rhythm tracking systems, and social coordination systems simultaneously. The cognitive demand is qualitatively different. Here is what this looks like. Robert is 70. He decided to take salsa dancing lessons at a community center. Salsa demands multiple brain systems simultaneously. He must learn new foot patterns, motor learning. He must keep time with the music, auditory and rhythm systems. He must maintain balance and spatial awareness, cerebellar and proprioceptive systems. He is doing this with a partner or a group, social systems. He must anticipate his partner's movements, theory of mind systems. He must manage the coordination between lower body rhythm and upper body timing, integration of multiple motor areas. Within 4 weeks, Robert's wife noticed he seemed more engaged overall. His attention seemed better. His memory for details in conversations improved. When they traveled to visit their daughter, he navigated the airport terminal with less confusion than he usually had. His overall sense of cognitive flow seemed improved. The mechanism is not a single pathway, but rather the simultaneous activation of multiple pathways that normally work in relative isolation. This creates new bridges between systems. These bridges represent new neural connections that can support overall cognitive function. The integration is what builds the reserve. The distinction that matters. Integrated activities are complex, but they should not be so difficult that you are entirely frustrated. The challenge should be present but manageable. You should feel like you are learning and engaging without being completely overwhelmed. If you are choosing an integrated activity, aim for one where you are a moderate beginner, not an absolute novice, and not an expert. Here is what to do. Choose or design one activity that combines at least 3 of the previous elements: novel learning, rhythmic movement, social engagement, and attention demands. Dance, team sports, collaborative creative projects, travel planning with friends, or group fitness classes that teach new patterns all work well. Aim for at least 1 to 2 hours per week. The benefits typically appear within 1 to 2 months. You now understand 5 brain activation systems that crossword puzzles do not address. Your next step is not to overhaul your life immediately. It is to add these activities strategically and sustainably. Start by assessing your current life. You are likely already doing some of these naturally. Maybe you walk regularly. Maybe you have a weekly dinner with friends. Maybe you sleep consistently. Identify which activities are already part of your routine. Next, identify which 1 or 2 are missing. If you are sedentary, add rhythmic movement. If you are socially isolated, prioritize genuine social engagement. If your sleep is inconsistent, address that first. It amplifies the benefits of everything else. If you have not learned anything new in years, choose a skill. Do not try to add everything at once. Pick one area of focus for the first month. Master that. Then add a second. Within 3 months, you will have a routine that activates multiple brain systems regularly. Write down your choices. Write down how often you will engage in each activity. If it is not on your calendar, it will not become a habit. Treat these brain activation activities the same way you treat a medical appointment, as non-negotiable commitments to your own health. Finally, connect these activities to something you genuinely enjoy. Rhythmic movement does not have to be on a treadmill. It can be walking in a garden you love. Novel learning does not have to be a formal class. It can be exploring something you have always been curious about. Social engagement does not have to be a club. It can be deeper conversations with people you already know. Integrated complexity does not have to be a dance class. It can be any activity where multiple demands operate simultaneously. Your brain needs more than crossword puzzles. This is not a criticism of puzzles. They are valuable for what they are. But they are one instrument, and your brain is an orchestra. To maintain your independence, your memory, and your mental sharpness, your brain needs rhythmic movement to stimulate the growth systems. It needs novel learning to build new connections. It needs social engagement to maintain the emotional and social processing networks. It needs consistent sleep to consolidate everything you learn and clear out the debris. And it needs integrated complexity to create new bridges between all these systems. You do not have to be an expert in any of these areas. You do not have to be athletic, artistic, or intellectually gifted. You simply have to engage them regularly. The brain does not require perfection. It requires stimulation across multiple domains. In the next video, we will look at the specific signs that your cognitive strategy might need adjustment, and what these signs actually mean about what is happening inside your brain. If you want to understand your brain's health better, subscribe now. Your goal is not to fear aging. It is to recognize what your brain actually needs to maintain its power. And now you know.